Hey, ladies. So I am so excited to be back with you for another episode of Motherhood Moments with Denisha. And today we're talking about the power of positivity and prayer in motherhood. Ladies, I know that most of you are probably already doing some of these things, but I really just wanted to share because it has really changed the way that I parent. It's also changed just the difficulty, the level of difficulty I have some days when I know that I can rely on these things. And so let's rewind. Let's rewind to when I had my first daughter. My mom had stayed with me for 2 weeks to help me, and I was a nervous wreck. I was never just like a baby person. So I was so nervous when she left me all alone, her and my grandmother both. And I remember crying as she walked out the door to her car, and I was thinking, Lord, how am I going to do this on my own? Like she had been there, and I had, gotten a little more comfortable doing all these things on my own. But I'm like, okay, now it's just me, my husband, and this little baby. And neither one of us have much experience with little babies. So, I just remember, going through all these different things when I was breastfeeding. I remember I was just really sore and all of these things. And there would be nights that she would wake up in the middle of the night and she would just be screaming, and I didn't know how to comfort her. It would seem like nothing I did helped. I would walk around with her and try to see if she needed to burp, or I would try to feed her, give her a pacifier. She didn't want that. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Because she's just crying. And so it was then that I started to pray, because it was like out of last resort. I thought, well, God, I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything and this baby is still crying. She's still not happy. So I remember praying, and I remember when I prayed, it was like this peace immediately came over her, and she stopped crying and she went back to sleep. And I was like, oh my goodness, how does this work? Like, I had no idea that it was like that. So, just a disclaimer, I mean, it definitely does not work that way every time. We don't serve a genie in a bottle who answers us on demand. However, there are times when, things will happen right away. Things will happen much sooner than you expect, and God will give the baby peace and give you peace in a situation just to help you through it. Even if they continue to holler, he may work on you and give you peace to be able to handle it and not feel overwhelmed. So there have been several times where he's come to my rescue in the middle of the night, when everything else had failed. And so that leads me to my first point: make prayer a priority. So pray about everything, ladies. Nothing is off limits. I don't care if it's because your nipples are sore, or if it's because your baby is up and she's not sleeping because she has acid reflux, or she's spitting up everything and you don't know what the deal is and you can't call your doctor because it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Or if you're extremely tired and your baby is up wanting to eat and you're like, Lord, how can I do this? I'm so tired. I can barely keep my eyes open. Whatever it is, take it to the Lord in prayer. That is the one tip of advice that I would give any new mother, and not just for motherhood, but for everything. It is so important to remember that we have someone that is there and willing to help us. All we have to do is open our mouths and ask. Isn't that great? So I would, recommend that you pray. And then, of course, the one thing that I think with motherhood, I remember that, why didn't I pray about this sooner? That's usually the question I find myself asking. I ask myself, like, why did it take me so long to think about prayer as an option? So if that sounds like you, I just want to remind you that, a lot of times we take everything else to the Lord in prayer. We can pray about our marriage, we can pray about finances, or whatever else may be going on in our lives, but we forget that we can also take this to Him. And it doesn't matter if it's something small. It doesn't matter if it's a milk duct that's driving you crazy. It doesn't matter if there's an issue or your baby has a rash on their neck. I prayed about that too. That was another miracle that happened for me, where my baby's neck was completely raw. I mean, raw. And I had taken her to the doctor. We had tried every home remedy, every medical suggestion, and it was still raw. And when I tell you, when I finally just said, Lord, I don't know what this is, I prayed to Him about it. And literally, I woke up the next morning and I couldn't believe my eyes when I looked at her neck, because it was gone. It had been there for weeks, maybe even like a month. I don't remember exactly, but it had been there for a while, guys. It didn't just pop up one day. It had been there. And we have been trying all these things. The old people had me browning flour on the stove top, telling me to put this brown flour on her and all this. And I tried it all. But when I prayed about it, immediately, I mean, the next day, it was gone. It was healed. So I'm just here because I can't help but tell about the goodness of the Lord, because he's so faithful. We have to just remember to open our mouths and speak whatever it is. The word tells us that whatsoever you ask for in prayer, believing, you shall receive. So we have to believe, first of all, what we're asking him for. We have to believe that he's able, and we have to believe that he's willing. And so if we can believe God for whatever it is, then I guarantee you that he can come through for you. It may not be exactly when you want him to. There have been nights where I've prayed and I'm like, oh gosh, when will you answer? It may not come right away, but he always comes in the nick of time. And he rescues us when we're in trouble or when we have concern, okay? And number 2, my favorite way to pray is to pray the scriptures. And what I mean by that is that whenever there's something going on in my life with my children or my life in general, I go and use good old Google or whatever I have in my registry of my mind, and I find a scripture that pertains to that particular issue, and then I pray that word back to God. It's awesome. Why do I do that? Because if it's written in his word, we know that his word is true. And he tells us that his word will not return to him void. That means that there's nothing written there that, we can pray about or we can trust him for that he won't fulfill for us. Now, again, it does not always happen when you think it should happen or even how you think it should happen. But if it says it in the word, we know that God is able to do it. So I would encourage you to look up scriptures, whether it's you have older children and you're having trouble with them. Maybe there's a particular area where there's a self-esteem issue, or maybe they are just being very disrespectful. Whatever it is, find a scripture, pray it back to God. And let me give you an example. So I have a free printable for y'all. Yay! You'll have to go to my website to get it after this. I'll link that below in the YouTube video. And I can't really link it here on IGTV, but please go to the link in my profile so that you can find that document and check it out. And so, I started praying this because I wanted their joy to be full. I wanted them to be joyful even when things around them were kind of crumbling or different whenever we started dealing with this pandemic. And so I actually created this document. I printed it out. I hung it up on my refrigerator so that every time I passed by it, every time I was in the kitchen cooking or whatever, I would remember to pray these prayers over my girls. And so the way that I do that is I just take that scripture that I just read to you, and I basically kind of put it in the context of how it applies to me and my family. So I pray, Lord, when their anxiety is great, please let your consolation bring them joy. You be their joy, Lord, because that's what your word says, that, you're able to bring us consolation whenever we have great anxiety, when we have a lot of cares on us and we don't know how to deal with it. We take it to you. So that is one of the verses. And then one thing that we do at night, I started doing this when we would say our prayers at night, is I taught them to 2 Timothy 1:7, because, sometimes with kids, they're scared. They're scared of the dark. They are scared of monsters, whatever. And so, I would always pray. They heard me praying it first, like, God didn't give you a spirit of fear. And so I taught them the verse. Well, actually, I was surprised because I had been praying it over them. And then they started to say the verse in their prayers themselves after a while. So they picked it up. And that made me feel really good, because I'm like, oh, Lord, I'm so glad that they are actually picking up on this valuable approach, to praying the word. So that verse, again, 2 Timothy 1:7, yes, it says, for God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And so, I always pray that for them. They pray it now. They know it. And they say it for themselves, like, we are not afraid. God didn't give us a spirit of fear. We have power, love, and a sound mind. We're at peace, okay? So that is something awesome. I would encourage you, if there's an area that your child, and I don't care how young they are, even if they can't verbalize it, pray it over them because they're listening, they're soaking it in. And just like my kids surprised me when they started praying it for themselves, I mean, you just never know. So please do that. All right, and I'm trying to wrap this up. I was trying to kind of go quick so that these videos will be less than 10 minutes, but sorry, I think this one's going to be a little bit longer. But the last point, and I'll have a lot more detail on the written version of this on my website, by the way. So please make sure you go to lovejoyblessings.com and read the document and also get your free printables for the scriptures that I'm praying over my children, and that hopefully you can pray over your children. And so get that. And also read the article because I will have a lot more detail and, I won't have to like rush through all that. You can read it and it's all good. So the last thing that I love to do with my girls to incorporate positivity into their lives is positive affirmations. Now, I know that you've seen this done. You probably already do it yourself, but I wanted to talk about that because it is so powerful. I have been doing this for a while. My husband started off doing this with the girls, just on their appearance and complimenting everything about them. And I picked it up and started doing it for different things that I saw. Like, let me give you some examples. My oldest daughter was having a little bit of insecurity about her skin at some point. And so, we created an affirmation to help her to speak the thing, the confidence and all of that. And even if they don't quite believe it when they start saying it, eventually what we speak becomes our reality. It becomes what we believe about ourselves. What we think becomes what we believe about ourselves. So we have to feed ourselves with positive words, with positive thoughts. And so that's all we're doing is helping to shape those thoughts and keep them in a positive frame of mind, because that in turn helps them to be confident, to be, secure in who they are, and to know that the beauty they have, that they possess, it comes from the inside out. And so we have our affirmations on a document that I made, and it's taped to the back of our front door. So I encourage you to put these affirmations in a place where you have to pass by every day, somewhere that you guys can remember to do these together, or your kids can do them on their own if they're older, whether that's their bathroom mirror, when they go to brush their teeth, whether it's their bed frame, or again, I have young kids, and so a lot of times we're rushing trying to get to school. We get ready to walk out the door. We do them sometimes while we're still getting ready. Other times we're actually saying them on the way to school. So even if you don't get them done before you get out the door, we're walking to school and they're repeating after me. And after a while, they don't have to repeat after me. They know them. So we're saying those affirmations. And when I tell you, I have seen them start to believe the words that they're saying, it really does work. So whether that's, again, lacking confidence, whether that's, their feelings get hurt really easily, so they're usually coming home sad or upset, we can help them to understand that it's okay to be sad. It's okay for your feelings to be hurt, but we get to decide how we respond. We get to decide how long we allow someone else to make us feel sad. So I have taught my girls that, I want you to feel that. I want you to know what that feels like. But I also want you to know, no matter what someone else says, that doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it true about us, right? So we are the boss of our emotions. And that is one of my favorite affirmations that I have for my girls. And even for me, I tell them every morning, you are the boss of your emotions. So yes, if someone hurts your feelings, that is okay. Decide how you would like to respond to that and how long you want to allow that to affect you emotionally. You choose, right? So that is basically all I have. I can also share those affirmations with you that I've created for my daughters if you're interested. I may go ahead and link those also in the article that I have on my website. So remember, go to lovejoyblessings.com. That way you can read this in a more unrushed and detailed version. Also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can look it up either by my name or Lovejoy Blessings. It's also Denisha Matthews is on there as well. And then IGTV will always post the videos here because I know that most of you are on Instagram on a daily, so it may be easier access. But I just really would love to hear your feedback. Let me know if this is helpful. Also, I will be asking what you'd like to hear more about, what topics are of interest to you so that we can incorporate those in the coming week. I have had people reach out and tell me that these tips have been very helpful, and that even if they're mothers or not, they've told me that they've been helpful and that they've enjoyed it. And so I would like to hear what you think and what topics that you may want to hear about soon. So thanks so much for tuning in. Love, joy, and blessings to all of you this week. Have a great day.